Part 2, R795 of week 8 is now being recorded to the cloud. I think it was really exciting to have Florence Martin in part 1. And I'm so impressed with the amount as well as the quality of the research that she's conducted in her fairly short career. She's done so much that has had an impact on the field, as someone that we can all look to in the future as a leader, and today also a leader. Before we get into my writing tips, I want to do a little ask me anything real quick. You all can ask me anything you want to ask, just to give us a break before I present my slides. Anything that you want to be answered, any question, any article issue, any assignment, any question that you have. I just want to make sure that you don't have anything that needs to be addressed. So
yeah, for me, it has to do with this last assignment. I think I combined this last assignment with the next assignment. I don't know what I was thinking.
Okay.
You did the same thing, Kim, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize that, and I apologize, Dr. Bonk, that there were the examples on your Dropbox, and so I combined some of the pieces to it. So yes, Aisha, I did the same thing.
So you combined the next assignment, the one not due till end of October?
Yeah, the one that has to do with analysis. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh, I think I did that too.
See?
I think well, it just seemed to be a part of it and flow, right? I mean, it's like peanut butter and jelly. They seem to go together.
Yeah, so design, it should be research design and sampling plan, and some of you added the analysis to it then.
A little bit.
Yeah, okay.
A little bit.
I'm flexible,
Hey, I'm the first to admit I am on the struggle bus.
I didn't get a ticket to that one yet, but I'm sure that
oh, you don't want it.
Okay, I'm sure I could request one. So, anyone else have a comment or a question like that?
I have a question. Oh, sorry, Aisha, you go ahead first.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. Since we've combined it, does that mean we don't get to turn in the other assignments, or just copy and paste this section on there? How do we deal with it?
Yeah, so when that assignment comes due, you could just put at the top, I would say you could resubmit it, maybe with a little shiny penny added to it, some little comments, or you could do it where you resubmit and then you draw a line and you say, these are some extra thoughts since I last submitted. I would just draw a line and just say, Dr. Bonk, this is what I've added. These are additional thoughts I've had since I originally submitted it.
Okay,
and maybe if you draw the line in blue, it would stand out, or in red. And then I will know to look primarily at that. Anything new. If there's nothing new, that's okay too. But typically over a month, if you've had a month to think about it, you're probably going to have 1 or 2 new ideas to share. So
okay, no problem. Thank you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I had a quick question about getting ready for quals, and that there might be that in the past there has been an evaluation plan question to create an evaluation plan. In that evaluation plan, should we include a budget?
If I was doing it, I would.
Okay.
Because I'm a former accountant, so I'm always thinking in budgets. I will say that if we revise the EDD program, that evaluation question might go away. But for now, since you're in the program that exists, they will have an evaluation question, and there probably is an example or two in the examples list of the types of evaluation questions. So again, the Dropbox has examples of most of the tasks. After the first semester of teaching this course a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, I decided to put some examples up. And so students have found them to be pretty good. I think they're anonymous. I've deleted all names from them. So you can just, you'll be able to find enough, I think. There's lots of dissertation examples, and I keep adding to them. There's lots of proposal as well as prospectus, the short. So as the task, there's task examples. I don't know if there are examples of qualifying exam responses. There may be. I can't remember about that. But there definitely are of everything else in there, or most everything.
The other question I had was for the evaluation plan, again, if that is a question, would it be proper to do an because in APA, you have an abstract and then you go into the paper. Would the abstract be replaced with an executive summary, or would you keep an abstract and then go into the paper? How was that?
I've not graded that, but if I was doing it, yeah, I like executive summaries,
Okay.
you know, and they're beneficial, but I would think that most people probably don't put a preface or a summary or an abstract or a nutshell of some kind, because they're so engaged in just answering the darn question and running out of time before they do. So I would maybe do that last, even though it, you know, and that often happens in journal articles too. You add the abstract at the very last minute before you go, oh, we forgot to put an abstract on here. Oh my God, we just spent months doing this thing. We're all done. We're already go out and have beers and celebrate. And then somebody reminds you, you didn't do an abstract. You put the key words in there. You didn't do this. You didn't do the acknowledgements. You haven't put, you know, whatever else. They thank the grant funding agency. You know, all those things, they tend to happen towards the end as opposed to towards the beginning. So I'd look at it. See if you have time, and then I would put shiny and fancy objects in the thing, as many as you could, if time permits, you know.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions for me or you up?
Yes. So how early is the qualifying exam start? I know it's on that specific Thursday, but do they start at 8 or 7 or I don't know. I'm trying to balance, like I'm 1 hour behind Eastern time.
Yeah, I can't remember. Is it 8 o'clock, Ben, or what time did they give you?
Around 7:55, so around 8. So,
Eastern time.
yeah, Eastern time.
Yeah,
Indiana
so
time.
it'd be 7 o'clock, a little before, it's 5 minutes to 7 in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let's say if
Are you sure you won't email Dr. Kwon to clarify? Because that would be an issue for me if I have to do school runs for my kid.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. Yeah, you should let Dr. Kwon know your schedule, because he sent out an email asking if people have to have schedules that need to be adjusted. He has sent that out. So if you have that, I would write to Dr. Kwon and see what you could do to work around that. He might drive your kids to school. I don't know. I mean, he's a good guy. He might have me do it. I don't know. So Ben, are you in Eastern time, or is Louisville in Central time?
We're on Eastern.
Okay. So it's Western Kentucky that's on Central time. Yeah.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else before I jump in and just give you a few tips and we'll call it a night? Yep, Ben, go ahead.
I might be missing it in the Dropbox, but I don't see examples of student responses to the qualifying exam questions. I see some committee question examples. Is that a possibility to have some examples?
It's possible if I saved those. And so Sun May, write to me afterwards and I'll check my my file folder if I have some examples of, you're saying of the, not of the committee question, or are you saying of the committee question?
I'm saying not the committee question, but for example, an evaluation question, a student response to an evaluation question.
Right. Yeah, I'll take a look through and see if I can anonymize some responses and send those to you, although I may not know if they passed or not. I can, you know, if they're responding to quals, those are graded by many faculties, you know. So so with that caveat, I don't know, I wouldn't know the score unless they're ones I graded and I saved. So, you know, so I'll take a look through. I have both. I have every semester, I probably have saved every student's, but again, I have to white out any name that applies. So, yep, I can take a look through. Now, you're not talking for practice calls. You're talking about the real thing, the real deal.
I suppose either would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there might be an ethical issue if I sent you the student response to the real quals. But if I sent you the practice ones, there's not going to be an ethical issue. So I think I'll have to look at the practice ones. Just so I'm safe. I mean, I'll be a little on the cautious side on this time. Because there's something about, students being evaluated on that their whole life is determined by their response, it'd be problematic maybe to share that. But the practice ones, that's not been problematic because they're just that, they're practice ones. Okay, so I'm going to go through. I think that I just reviewed my.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So, it's Shannon. I have a question. I'm very confused. So for the qualifying exams, day one, is that like an oral test, or are we supposed to write something off for day one? What is day one exactly? I have such anxiety.
Yeah. So Sunmei has taken those and passed. Sunmei, tell Shannon what day one was like.
Day one is written test for 2 writing tests for 7 hours. And then exam 2 is oral presentation about your committee question.
7 hours?
7 hours. So 3.5 hours per each writing.
And so I'm just on Zoom writing while people are watching me?
No.
Okay.
You will receive the email.
I see you laughing at me, you may.
No.
I had that question too, and I clarified with I forgot with somebody else. I was like, somebody's watching me on Zoom.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sunmei.
Yeah,
There's
so you
a
will
song.
receive. Yeah, you will receive an email from the maybe Dr. Pong right now, right? Just to before actually Dr. Brush, but I think that changes, right? So you will receive the email about the qualification exam 1, and maybe around the 7:55 in Indiana time, and then you will have 3.5 time, and then you have to submit, resend the email to the Dr. Brush or Dr. other professor, yeah, with your answer, so Word document.
Oh God. Okay.
And then actually that professors get your response. At that time, you will get the confirmation email. So you have to wait until getting the confirmation email from that professor. Yeah.
Oh, this just sounds horrible. It sounds like hazing.
Yeah. Not online, just to
Exactly. They had to do it, so we have to do it.
Yeah.
Shannon, I threw in the chat it's a link to the IST qualifying exam procedure for EdDs, and you can look through it. It's the last one that we received from Vicky back in May. So you can check it out.
All righty. Thanks, Kim. Okay.
I just threw a little song in the chat window if you really need it. There's a few others I found as well real quickly here, if you need that, by Rockwell, and it's been covered by many people. So you can have music. I think you can have music playing in the background. If you want to listen to classical music or something, or new age music while you're writing. I mean, you can have beverages sitting next to you, and just not in Milwaukee, I'm sure it's beer, but just grapefruit juice or elderberry or something like that. You can have a whole set of berries sitting next to you, and if you could spend a little money, get a massage therapist, scooting your shoulders back and forth, or a little massage machines, you can loosen up, and you can stand up and stare out the window. It doesn't have to be 3.5 hours just sitting at the dang computer the whole time. You can get up and stretch and look outside, which I do. That's what I do. I try and look out the window. Sunmei?
Yeah, actually, I recommend to have a timer. That's because there is no online exam, actually just email exam. Just you are supposed to write something and then reply, resend it to the professor. So, and then it's really, really short time you feel, actually right now the 3.5 is really long time, but it was really short. So just to make a plan, how to divide each section. So for example, just read, something, 30 minutes and then brainstorming, something like that. And actually start to writing maybe after 30 minutes, something like that. So just to make a plan.
Okay.
And then before 30 minutes, maybe submitting, just you have to, read proofreading, do proofreading. So that's required, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe you can make up. And then whatever you want, you can bring. Okay. So
Okay.
yeah.
So
That's
for
okay.
your questions about how long were your papers?
How long?
Yeah, how many pages for your questions?
Actually, mine is 7 or 8 pages, except for the title page.
Right.
Actually, I added the title pages. So actual content page is, 3 and 8.
Double spaced or single spaced?
Double space, I think.
Yeah. So the average,
APA.
what I think I remember, about 5 to 10.
Right.
10's a long one
Yeah.
for in terms of
5 to 10.
text.
Yeah.
And keep in mind that of the 3.5 hours, you're going to spend at least an hour reading the article, which leaves you only 2.5 hours for writing,
Right.
and
Exactly.
yeah. And so, yeah. So it's not 3.5 hours of sitting down writing. You're going to be reading first, or maybe read as you go. I don't know, whatever you would like to do. These are all you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry. Not the article critique, but the other question, do we read a paper or it's more like a paragraph of like scenario you have to do something?
Yeah, that one is just 1 page actually description about the situation. So for example, assessment is something actually there is some storyline, but it's really short, just 1 paragraph.
Okay.
And then you have to read it carefully and then just read. So more time to, writing compared to the, article critique. Yeah.
Okay, so may I have a question, if you don't
Yeah.
mind? The committee question thing. I noticed in my committee question, they told me when we are submitting this, of course, they say follow APA and all that. They also said include the question. That kind of make it awkward to have a title page and the question you are being asked by the committee, or did you also come out like that? It depends on the. Because that's what I was thinking, okay, if I want to submit my paper, the committee question paper, I'm supposed to put the question. Am I supposed to put the question on top of my title page or just not have a title page in the first instance?
You can have a page before the title page that has your committee question. You can do whatever you want, but it's really helpful for the committee reading it because we can't remember all the committee questions that we assigned. We can go back to our records. So I print them out and I know when I get them, I attach the committee question to the paper, but it's much easier if you include the committee question at the start, then there's no confusion about what you're writing on and we can refer back to that. So, but that doesn't count for your word. You got 4,000 words. It doesn't count the committee question. It doesn't count the references, doesn't count appendices, but it used to be, it used to be 2,500. I convinced them to increase to 3,000. Then I convinced them to increase to 3,500. Then I convinced them to increase to 4,000 because everyone was writing 4,000 anyways. So, typically. Okay. So I'm going to share some things with you here. Let's see if I can do it. There we go. A little Peanuts cartoon in again with us. Okay, I am going to hide the panel next to me for a little bit here. If I find hide video panel, thank you. Okay, great. So here's publication process considerations and Snoopy, keep looking up. That's the secret of life. That's also the secret of publishing, having a smile, being optimistic, because you can get torn down, as A-Shot found out, with the rejects that you can get. And some of the rejections are really brutal, really brutal. To be honest, I had a team 10 years ago, back when Yua was a master's student, who was working with me, and she may remember, you remember Yurong Wang, Yua?
Yeah, I think you're wrong, right?
Yeah. She was on my team, and Mink Young, you might remember Mink Young Kim and Il-ho, and others were on my team, Dong Il, and a whole bunch. I had 20 people on my team. We had 5 of them studied informal online learning environments with me and looked at 300 different websites and analyzed them from 8 dimensions. And one of the reviewers, we sent it to the IRO, International Review of Research on Open and Distributed Learning, just said, is this a joke? Are you testing the review process? This is such a junky article. This is so terrible. This is a laugh. This is, because of some of the dimensions that we were coding on, we looked at, sustainability, novelty, creativity of these websites. One was also the impact on human development. And, we were looking at, kind of the bright side of life, or so we thought. But someone took offense and just bashed us. And we had a grad student led the article, and I felt so bad for her, because here's her first publication potentially. And they spent weekends for 6 months, every Saturday and part of Sunday, analyzing 300 websites. And here one of the reviewers starts off with, this is a joke. So, so while you've been rejected, Ashad, I'm sure they didn't say in the reviews that you got, is your research a joke? Maybe they did. I don't know. But, so
No,
things,
we didn't get that.
yeah. So be happy, you can get really brutal. It can, you have to pinch yourself and say, I'm still the same person I was yesterday when I had my article accepted in Tech Trends and published on drone technologies. And today you can get just hammered, some people, it was got on the ground unethical, I thought, actually. So do keep looking up the bright, shiny lights, because, you can get down in this business rather fast. And have your supports, have your friends out there, collaborate with, and so forth. So I'm going to talk about putting your best work forward. When you do a book review in a class, you can get that published. When you do a systematic review of a research in a class like this or another, you can try and get it published. When you have a final project that, like in my classes, I have students write potential grant proposals. You can submit those kinds of things. So class projects sometimes can get published. Qualifying exams sometimes can get published. I'm not saying all the time. This is a small percent of the time, but it still can happen. And you can, if you do a lot of work on a class assignment or on your comprehensive exams, your quals or somewhere else, you can try and submit that. So look for journals that might fit. And on my homepage, on my website, Soon may correct me if I'm wrong, I showed you my website that has web resources, including journals you can publish in. There are over 100 of them. So think about who your readers are. Think about who's on that editorial board for the journal, and look at prior articles published in that journal. Look at the the kind of the metrics of the journal in terms of acceptance rates, which can be published, average turnaround rates. Now I've got, at the end of, in December alone, I have 11 different research teams all around the world. We submitted 11 different papers. There's only 1 or 2 of which we've heard back from, and these were submitted in December. It's now October. I'm getting a little nervous on these articles, and of course we've been rejected on maybe 1 or 2 of them, so we didn't hear back. We've resubmitted. So sometimes, and this is getting longer during COVID times because people can't find reviewers. The editors can't find reviewers. It may not be a bad paper on your part, but they just can't find a reviewer that can look at it. So you have to also talk to your advisor, talk to your friends, and find out which journals tend to respond more quickly, which journals tend to be, have good processes in terms of keeping you up to date as to the review process. So the Internet and Higher Education Florence mentioned, she's published in, they have a really good tracking system. They will send you an email every time it moves through part of the process. The difficulty of the Internet and Higher Ed is submitting the article, because sometimes they want each figure as a separate file, each table is a separate file, but it's a top tier journal. It has a great track record and great review process. And, write to the editors, and if your journal's article's been in review 6 months like mine have been, or 10 months, write to them and ask them, is there estimated time when this will, be reviewed? Do you have any sense? Sometimes they'll have 2 of the 3 reviews back and they're just waiting for the 3rd one or the 4th one. And we had one recently where the editor said, we're not getting a 3rd reviewer, I'll just review it. And he reviewed the article in 30 minutes or 2 hours and did his great. We had great feedback. So sometimes contacting the editor can speed up the process. At least can make sure they're not ignoring it, and they can at least track it down so it's on their radar in effect. Look for authors like Florence Martin and see where they're publishing their articles in. If you like Florence's work, like a couple of you have pointed out, well, where's Florence publishing? Try for those places. And also look at the reference list in Florence's articles and see where other authors are publishing their work. And there are tiers in terms of the journals. What's called first tier, the top journals like ETR&D, she mentioned, Internet and Higher Education, the British Journal of Educational Technology, Journal of Computing and Higher Education, Journal of Educational Computing Research, Computers in Education, Distance Education. Those are among the top tier journals. There are others. IRODL, the guy that really bashed us, is a top tier journal. So SSCI, it's open access. And I know the original editor, I was kind of mad at him for sending us the review back. And then there are second tier journals like Contemporary Educational Technology. I'm trying to think of some other second tier, second level. Some of the technology and teacher education journals are often second tier kinds of journals. International Journal of E-Learning Research might be second tier. So if you don't get accepted in first tier, you can try second tier, or maybe it's not good enough to be in the top tier. You try for the second tier right away. There are a couple Canadian journals that I've published in that might not be considered top tier journals, but they're really good second tier journals. There's an Australian Journal of EdTech. It's now Australasian Journal of EdTech. That's a top tier journal. They always reject me. Computers in Ed always rejects me. But I've published in all the other ones that I've mentioned, some of them many, many times. So sometimes it's a luck thing. There are enough journals out there that you can try something else, and don't give up. Don't give up. And I will get a Computers in Ed article someday, and I will get the Australasian Journal someday. It's on my list, on the bucket list. So there's third tier journals as well, like the Turkish journals are out there, the Turkish Journal of Educational Technology, or the Turkish Journal of Online and Distance Education, TOJDE. My team and I probably might be considered second tier, maybe it's a third tier and so forth. Anyways, you have to kind of think in your head what journals you want to go to. It might be a practitioner related journal. Now, some articles in Tech Trends would be much more practitioner than data driven kinds of articles. Other journals are specifically going to be more practitioner based in nature, dealing with problems in the practice. Often they get really widely read. Like Florence mentioned EDUCAUSE. EDUCAUSE is an organization for technology and higher education. They had 2 journals, EDUCAUSE Review and EDUCAUSE Quarterly. EDUCAUSE Review, one of the 2 no longer exists, and Sume can maybe look this up, EDUCAUSE Review or EDUCAUSE Quarterly. The other one is free and open access. It's not a top tier journal, but it can be read by tens of thousands of people because their readership and their conference is huge. And so I had one article on, we predicted the future of online learning back in 2005 or 6 or so. It's been widely cited. And so we were lucky to have it in EDUCAUSE, even though IU, does my annual report for product, they don't care as much about EDUCAUSE, but for my reputation across the country was enhanced by having it. Then there are refereed articles and non-refereed. They're often the practitioner ones might be non-refereed, might not go through a journal review process. So places like Educational Leadership, which you may have heard of, Educational Leadership Journal, that is reviewed only by the editor. There used to be a journal or a magazine called Educational Technology Magazine. But the problem there is the guy running it, my good friend Larry Lipsick, passed away and it no longer exists. But that was a non-refereed journal / magazine. There are other ones out there. Phi Delta Kappa has you could publish in there, or one of the other more practitioner-oriented outlets. Yeah. So here are some examples of the top tier journals out there. Instructional Science is a European one, and my most cited article was in Instructional Science. It was co-written with a former student of mine who's now a professor in informatics, Noriko Hara. And it was her idea to go there. And we looked at online discussion groups. Sunmei, she mapped out the discussion flows like you're kind of doing in my other class for your dissertation. And it's been the most widely cited of anything I've written in journal format. Internet and higher ed, Florence mentioned, and she had the example of our special issue in EdTech Research and Development, and then the British Journal. I published in the British Journal, but I'm not going to recommend it. So British Journal is always kind of flaky. Sometimes they 4 people review it and you respond, and then they send it out to another 4 people after you've made all the changes, and it can be a long time. So, and sometimes, so I might not recommend it, but they may have changed editors and they may have changed the review process. It may be different now. I think it is different now, but I still, based on my experiences, I've suffered through it enough to, and actually I won't recommend ETR&D. That review process is just taking so long, and they lose, it's ungodly in the amount of time. Now it's the top tier journal. It's the ACT flagship journal. I should not be saying this. I've got the special issue in there, but those left 2 journals, they're hard, and for different reasons, it takes a long time. Just take, many do. And then you got second tier journals, like I was saying. Now, Journal of Educational and Computing Research on the left. Back when I was in grad school, that was the top tier journal in the field. And the same editor still exists. His name's Robert Seidman from New Hampshire. He's a friend of mine. I used to be on the board of that journal. I would maybe consider it to be more top tier. It's an SSCI, Social Science Citation Index. If you get an article, and all these are SSCI, if you get an article published in SSCI and you're in Korea like Sunmei would have been, you get a $5,000 bonus. And so all my former students in Korea want to be published in those journals. And so why I had 16 SSCI journals since the pandemic started, and I got nothing, no bonuses. They all got thousands and thousands of dollars. And if you're in China, you can get tenure for 1 SSCI. If you're in Taiwan, you can get distinguished professor for 3 years with 1 SSCI article. In Singapore, you got to have a lot of SSCI articles. They do not, it's not for the faint of heart to be a faculty member in Singapore. They actually punch clocks, basically. They look at when you enter and when you exit. It's a tough, we had many IST students have gone, they were Singaporeans, some were not. They've gone to Singapore to work at places there. And most of them are now not there anymore. It's a tough place to get tenure and other things. You can go Tech Trends, second tier, where Ashot went when she got published today. Again, congrats to her. Or the American Journal of Distance Ed. My friend Michael Moore, famous guy. He's kind of the father of distance education, or one of the founding fathers. I would say this is higher than a second tier, but I believe it's a second tier. And then you got some third tier, as I said, contemporary ed tech, contemporary issues in technology, teacher ed. And sometimes these are new journals. In China, they have a lot of smart learning. In Korea too, smart learning journals and all this. Well, it's third tier to start, and that moves up to second tier later on. So how do you find out what's happening in terms of the research? 1 is you go to conferences. 2 is you attend webinars on special topics that you're interested in. 3, you subscribe to their news feed. Some journals will send an email on every new issue. So you can sign up to get the issues as they appear, and then you can read the articles as they come out. And I subscribe. I think it's IRODL sends me every time they have a new issue. I subscribe to that one. And 2 more. There's an International Journal of IJET, Journal of Educational Technology, something like that. And so they send me every month, every quarter. I think Tech Trends might as well. ETR&D sometimes, yeah. So you save the articles that you find, and then you look for themes across the articles. I have a category on my desktop called articles to read, and I have them thematically. These are the articles I've saved in different topics. And when I create a new class, I look through all of them. Save the links. I have a PowerPoint slide deck where I've saved the links to interesting things and a screenshot of the article. And then when I want to go back and read them or assign them or whatever, they're saved somehow. Write to people, interview people, all these kinds of things. There's also an issue today in terms of predatory journals. Be very careful after you do your dissertation of publishing it with anybody. I'd recommend not publishing it until you can revise it and rewrite it and talk to a publisher if you want. But most of the ones that want to publish your dissertation are predatory and they want to sell your dissertation. And they're mostly in Madagascar and in Germany. Don't tell me why. Or in Switzerland. And I forget which European country, but they're definitely Madagascar. You get an email from Madagascar, just cancel, just hit delete, There was one organization, at least said it was Germany, and they were sending it to all my students when they graduated and all. Even Springer. Springer's a reputable place, but I don't like Springer. I mean, if they publish your research, they charge $200 for someone to buy it. And they typically are charging it to the libraries, and libraries buy these things up and no one ever reads it anyways. And so Springer's not a predatory journal. It's very reputable, but from the standpoint of what they do for one's career, it's not all that much given all the work you put doing your dissertation. You're much better off publishing it in journals, or just sharing it with your friends and family, than going with Springer. Or I shouldn't say that, because Springer's connected to ETR&D and to ACT and to the entire field. But I've had too many students young in their careers graduate, and then they go to Springer, and they have all size publication of Springer. 10 people maybe buy the thing, so impact factor, Google Scholar, Web of Science, all the ranking. Look at those kinds of things. Now, there's a recent journal ranking list that I got in my basement. Every journal in EdTech or every journal in IST, in the chat window. So the question is, during the pandemic, have they gotten less citations, same citations, or more citations? I'm curious what people think. Less, more, or the same? Let me check the window. So all the EdTech IST journals, what do you think? More. Okay. And so what do you think happened with the rankings of the journals? Higher or lower? Higher or lower, or the same? Kim says higher. Anyone else want to guess? Ben says higher, US says higher. This class is 100% correct. The journals got inundated with articles and they all raised in their impact factor. This field is making a huge difference in America and around the world. So one shiny aspect of this talk today is you can go home tonight and sleep well, because this field ain't going away anytime soon. And the research is being read. The research is not only being read, it's been cited and it's making an impact. So and there are listings of open access journals. There are also listings of predatory journals. So you want to be concerned about that as well. And so one of my former students, Feng Ru Shu, she's now at Kent State in the library. She studied, for her IST dissertation, studied Olympic badminton coaches. Okay, so you can study pretty much everything in the field. I got one student studying tango dancing, self-directed learning right now. This field connects to a lot of things. But Feng Ru is also, she's got an IST degree, she's got a library science degree, I think she's got a CNI degree from IU, and she's got one more. I mean, she's got tons of degrees. She's originally from Taiwan. When she graduated, she was working on a haptic technology work, the Wii, and she helped bring me to Taiwan, and we looked at all sorts of studies there, and I got to give feedback on their haptic technology work. And she came back to the US and is at Kent State. And she's really concerned about fake journals and pseudo journals and sham journals and all this. So she did a talk with me for AECT a few years ago for early career graduate students and early career people, and trying to get people to antennas moved up in terms of the people who might prey on you. So here's what's going to happen. If the journal asks you for a submission fee, this might be a predatory journal. If the journal promises fast peer review and fast publication, it may be a predatory journal. If they try and they keep sending all these emails, from all these nebulous places, it's probably if this seems like spam, it probably is spam, and it's probably a predatory journal. If there's a small reviewer board, or they don't indicate who's on the reviewer board, if you don't know anybody on the reviewer board, it's probably a predatory journal. If it's new, a very new journal, you might be concerned about it. But some journals, might be higher quality. If they could be like the smart journals out of China, but if they have quantity, if they're new and they publish like 30 things or 40, if they're publishing everybody's article, it's probably a predatory journal. If there's inconsistencies in the email between what they say they do or anything in terms of the content doesn't, so this last week I kept getting emails from nursing associations. Professor Bonk, we really know you're an expert at I know nothing about nursing education. My first 2 doctoral students were nursing education and doing, so I do know a little bit, but not much. And and they're asking me to submit my work and come to the conference and be a keynote. And no, this is predatory. There are predatory conferences now, not just journals. There's even predatory conferences. You might get an article. Greetings, Bonk, CJ, Lee, MM, Co. So this is your greetings. Your article, has been published in EdTech and Society. It's a top-tier journal. It impressed us a lot. Please send us your next article because we're really impressed with this article. It's such a great article. We're really looking forward to working and receiving this article, your work. And so this is what happens. You publish somewhere that's reputable, and these predatory journals find it, and they send you all these compliments and say, "You're great stuff. You're in the IST gods. We want to publish you." Well, just don't believe anything. So check the criteria of the journal. Do your friends know of it? Does your advisor know of it? Do your colleagues, have they ever heard of it? And can you find a way to contact the publisher? Do they let you know who the publisher is of this journal? And can you contact them? Is the mission and the vision and the scope clear? Do they describe the scope of the journal? And do you recognize some of the articles that have been published? Do they charge a fee? Do they index thing in Scopus so that people can find it? And is the publisher recognized? And sometimes, even though they're recognized, like Springer, I still don't recommend them. So there's a list at the bottom. If you download my slides, you can go to the list that checks the journals out. So if you're concerned about, and there are 2 sources, one called Beale's list of predatory journals. It's a good list. I've used this in the past. It helps identify predatory journals. And then there's a directory of open access journals for more high quality. So DOAJ.org. Sunmay's going to put the summary for all of us. So that's really important. So here's how to start. Here's a couple of tips on how to get started. One is you write a conference proposal, and therefore you have to write 250 words or 1,000 words or 2,000 words. And then when you get back from the conference, you got 200 or 1,000 to turn into a real paper that you can publish. So start with the conference proceedings or conference proposals or grant proposal. Write a grant, and lo and behold, you got a lot of good stuff there that's never been published before, right? Even do a new course, a syllabus. Syllabus is a great place to mine to create an article from it. Write a book or a software review or some other kind of review. Do a blog. So you're doing a little blog postings in here, right? And you can I've turned blog posts into something much more grandiose and longer and got it published. Use social media and save those links in the social media. And then actually take the plunge. There are different ways to take the plunge. I think the easiest is writing a book review. I'll give you a tip. Most places really don't do much reviews. If you write a book review, they're not going to change much. It may take a little while to come out, but they're also fairly quick. Book reviews are quick. there's not much review. It's all your opinions. You don't have to back up a whole lot of what you say, but you get your name out there in the lights in a journal with all these grandiose journal articles. And at the bottom, we'll have the book review from Ben Stevens. Oh, whoa, he's just as important as Florence Martin. Oh, wow, And so you beat your chest, Ben, and feels really great. And his name's up in shiny lights. That's definitely the easiest way to get your name out there that I know of, other than being invited and, by your advisor. Maybe he was doing a special issue and just say, hey, Sunday, I'm doing a special issue of journal. You'd like to publish this dissertation that you're doing? So there's that. And then there's also newsletters, which aren't as good. But, what's nice about newsletters is that usually they're open access. So if you're in a work setting, you can share that with your colleagues. They can also find out about, you can go in, your organization might say, hey, Ben is published in EdTech magazine, or whatever news source that it was. And, Ben's published in the Washington Post or in the New York Times as an op-ed piece about technology and the medical field or medical assistant training, whatever he's working on. And another fairly easy way is to first post an interview, conduct an interview, put it in a blog, and then expand on it maybe into an article where you interview someone famous in the field that no one else has thought of interviewing. And then you go to the journal and say, I've interviewed, Professor Bowling or Florence Martin, or I've interviewed 5 of the most famous people looking at online learning competencies. And U.S. done that for her dissertations. You can publish those interviews possibly out there, but book chapters, that, or edit to a way to get most reputable. If you really want to increase your reputation, if you're concerned about that, edit a book for a publisher that's a reputable one, like Routledge or Sage or John Wiley or something like that. Editing a book is a way where it's not that hard. You have to edit everyone's work, maybe 15 chapters, but that it's doable, right? So, you can take a major grant proposal you did and sculpt it into an article of some kind. You can lead, soon they can say, I'm gonna do a special issue on and submit this to a journal, say for Distance Ed. I'm say to my friend Samna Do at Distance Ed, who often pops into my classes, hey, I want to do a special issue of Distance Ed. And he'll say, oh, who are you going to get to write? And so you work with them on it, and you get people like Florence and I have done twice now. So editing a book, doing a special issue, writing a grant proposal, being a sole author of a book is very hard, but all these are ways. So part 1, these are a little easier, and this is going to be a little bit harder, right? So I want you to take 99 seconds here of how you are going to take the plunge in your career during the next 9 months. How are you going to take the plunge in terms of publishing something, whatever that something is? How are you going to take the plunge, or will take? I want you to commit to doing something. It could be just a blog post, okay? It doesn't have to be a book. It could just be, it could be just posting to Twitter. I don't care. What are you going to write about? I'll stop for a second here and see what people are writing in the chat window. Because that's the end of part 2 of writing tips, the G3 of writing tips. And I think that's enough for tonight. I could do another section, but I think that's enough. I'll continue at another date here. I have a lit review of previous class. So it sounds like, Megan, you're in tune with this systematic review stuff. And you don't be afraid to contact Florence and ask her a follow-up question. Her email is readily available. I can put it in the chat window if you don't have it. Let me look for that here. Florence.
Well, did she share the slide deck? Did she?
No, I could ask her for that. I can ask her for that.
That would be, that would be huge, because I don't know that she would want to put her, thank you. I don't know that she would want to put some of that research out there yet. But right. If she wouldn't mind sharing, because some of those things would be hugely beneficial.
I imagine many of those charts are going to be in her book. So you'd be getting a sneak peek at chapter 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. She did last semester, she shared, or last year. I think
Okay.
last year I taught. So I'm sure I could get that from her. It's soon.
Well, and she did let you record it, so I have to
That's-
imagine that
Yeah.
probably not top secret info. But I asked a question in here, but now that I'm chatting with you, I might as well ask you live. How does one go about becoming an editor? Like, how do you do that? I feel like I always volunteered when we would do like group papers. I was like, I'll do these parts and then I'll go back and do all like the APA formatting and editing. Like that was always my role in things. So I might enjoy that. So I'm just curious, how does one go about doing that?
Yeah. So what kind of journals would you aspire to help out with?
I mean, STEM is a big thing. Equity and inclusion is a big thing. And then, instructional design in general, just because of this program. So.
Yep. So people start by being reviewers of the journal first. And then as people roll off the board, they make people aware that they would like to be on the board. They maybe see someone who's on the board originally or at the present time, and they write to them. Someone they know. And they say, if an opening ever happens, could you, please nominate me? Would you be okay with nominating me for that, position? So sometimes it's just luck. Other times it's through networks. Sometimes it's a snowball. It's just one thing leads to another, which leads to another. And I'm on 22 review boards or editorial boards, maybe 25. That's way too many. But I don't actually, they don't actually have me review. When you get to editorial board status, they have you scope the journal, but typically you're not reviewing articles, or you might. Also, you can negotiate with the editors when they ask you to be a reviewer. You can say, I can only do 1 or 2 articles a year to review, or 4 or 5 or whatever it is, and not be reviewing constantly. So you learn a little bit along the way. But first it's publishing in them is one way to start. And then after publishing, you get to know the editors of these journals. Also, some journals are connected with conferences, and the often editors will have a powwow, have a meet and greet where they'll explain the ins and outs of that journal. And you could go to those sessions, and after the seminar ends or the special invite of the editorial board ends, you can walk up to them after. That works too.
Kim and I are trying to plan next year to go in person to AECT. So that is our plan, to be there for sure. And I'm going to a STEM conference in Boston in November that I'm really excited about.
So the editors of ETR&D are at AECT. Lynn is one of the 2 editors. She's my good friend. As I said before, my podcast show is getting an award, and she's going to be the one giving it out. She's the ETR&D award. So I know ETR&D people. So I should be saying nice things about ETR. Don't repeat the thing. Well, she also realizes that some articles are in for a long time. She's trying to address that. So go to conferences, network through people publish within them, constantly talk. Don't get overbearing, but just mention it, kind of thing. And so you just have to wait in a queue for a bit, and things do happen. Like with Florence, she's gotten 3 or during the past year or 2 that all of a sudden have happened to her. But it's after she's done a lot of work that she won awards that got her listed on some of these places. So let's look at this. Ben says, submit an article regarding the use of R to create variation pharmacy calculation questions. That sounds great. Everyone's going to read that. That's wonderful. So Ben, you want to say where you're thinking of publishing that?
So that was kind of a freebie. We're actually working on that paper now.
Yeah.
So we're thinking pharmacy journal, Currents. It's kind of like the 2nd tier pharmacy education journal. So hopefully within the next 9 months, get something out there.
It sounds like you're on the path, and you got commitment, and you got something. It's going to happen. Kim, you want to explain yours, the podcast?
So I've always wanted to start a podcast on something related to teaching and education, like teaching education in animal sciences. But I've never had a chance to be able to do it. So maybe this is my push to start something like that. But my students have always said that I'm an inspiration to them. They actually they gave me this, they sent it to me, but it has my mom and it says love always, and it's from my records class. And then they also sent me a blanket and this thing that says kind heart, fierce mind, and brave spirit. So I would love to be able to look at, to be able to be like, do more inspiration stuff, but I think it would be kind of cool to do more work with OER because I've been working with some of my colleagues on OER stuff lately, actually in the past couple of months. And we have found that we're having a really hard time finding things that we can even have as skeletons. So that might be something worthwhile going down, but we would have to actually put work in to publish something.
Sounds like you're on your way, and I'm sure those students are just lovely people that done all that for you and with you. So yeah, you have a goal now, and you've got commitment. That's good. Yua, what are you committing to?
I'm sorry, I was coordinating something else. What was the question?
What are you committing to write in the next 9 months or do related to writing?
Okay. I think definitely finish my dissertation proposal for sure. And then I think I probably likelihood I'm going to take a new job if the job is offered to me. So that will be something I want to get used to and then see whether that's something I can work in the new institution. Yeah.
Sounds good. We'll hear more about that maybe in the next few weeks. We'll see. I would love to listen to Ben Stevens on Car Talk, Ed Tech Talk Radio. I think you got the right voice. You got a radio voice, Ben. So that would be great to have you come on there. Who else didn't we hear from here? Ashot, you have a commitment for, you've written a lot of stuff. So maybe you've written out anything you want to add, Ashot?
No. Thank you, though.
And Sunmei, anything you want to add?
Just I want to focus on my dissertation, and hopefully my daughter will be accepted to her dream school. That is my dream right now.
So you can see in here, I'm pushing you a little bit beyond what the scope of this course is, and that's to get you on the road to doing a dissertation. I want you also to be thinking about your professional lives. And it could be, more practical leaning art resources and journals and publications. It doesn't have to be research related, but at least once you get thinking about, becoming scholars from the standpoint of contributing in some way, shape, or form, and often that's in the area of writing. It could be in the area of presenting. It could be in the area of development, like Sunmei developing apps for people, or doing as Ben says, and Kim says, a podcast for a show for other people. So, I want to push you a little bit, but also I want to give you some tips about what I've learned along the way in terms of writing and what the challenges that we all face, as well as what opportunities lie in front of you. If you put the breadcrumbs down in front of you, there are some successes will happen along the way. There are some rough moments, but we can all rally together with your friends and with your colleagues to overcome the challenges that we face. Just recognizing the no people are out there. There's going to be no people, as I talk about as Kim found out in my R546 class, that we can be creative as much as, but even while we are creative, there's a lot of people who don't recognize it or are just going to say, no, you can't do it for whatever reasons that they'll state. And the same is true of publishing. You're going to run into barriers and walls. And, I'm working on a calendar project right now. I've submitted to a couple of publishers who do calendars in Chicago and in Kansas City, and they haven't heard anything back from. So I'm just going to plow ahead and publish it myself. And I just contacted people at Amazon or Kindle. And so I was up till 4:30, this 4 o'clock, working on my second 365 calendar this morning of my dog Oliver in Southern Indiana. And we're finishing it and sending it to the publisher. The other first one is on its way from the publisher. I'm going to be getting it next week. I'll share it. So we have class next week, asynchronous, and the week after we will not have. So we'll have one more session. Then unless you want to meet me from ACT, and have me do a session, but I think I'm going to give you the week off. I'm going to give me the week off and let you all have a chance to reflect. And again, it might say October 25th for the assignment due, but you do not really have to turn that in until, how about November 1st? You know, give everyone a little break as the final deadline there. But again, 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks later, you're a proposal. You don't want to delay too long because you have the full proposal and other things coming due. So yeah, if there's no more questions, I am going to sign off tonight, and I'm going to say stop the recording on week 8. And thank you, everybody. We are